Hi there, my name is Sean Nguyen and this is my audience. Good evening everyone. Today I would like to share you a message. Now, imagine yourself or a loved one in a hospital bed and the doctor came in and told them that they were diagnosed with a terminal illness. The doctor told you that you had 5 months to live and that you were going to die a painful and slow death. Some of you might want to ask your physician to help you die a less painful death to avoid this suffering. However, except for Oregon, physician-assisted suicide is not allowed in any of the other states in the nation. Today, I will convince you that physician-assisted suicide should be legalized in the United States. My brother died in 2001 because he suffered a stroke and was unconscious for so many months. He was on life support for almost a year and there was just no way that we could have helped him recover. Although this story is not really related to physician-assisted suicide, I became interested in this topic after my brother's death because I wanted to see what conscious patients wanted to do with their lives after they heard that they had a terminal illness. Today, I will tell you why patients should have the right to relieve suffering, why many people argue against physician-assisted suicide for reasons such as the sanctity of life. And third, I will tell you why patients should have the right to choose the timing and manner of their death. My first main point is that terminally ill patients should have the right to die if they choose to avoid being in terrible pain or agony. Many people think that people should go through the suffering and just go along with it and die. However, I believe that the patient should have the right to decide for themselves. It's cruel to see, for pet owners, it's cruel to see when their dogs suffer or the cats suffer, so they euthanize them so that they can relieve their suffering. One thing that doesn't make sense is that animals don't have a choice, and yet humans do this for their animals. Why can't humans also have this choice? It's unfair to forbid physicians from assisting a patient's death when the patient asks them to do so. Now, suffering is more than just pain. According to an online article written by Dr. Braddock III from the University of Washington at the School of Medicine, he states that there are other physical, existential, social, and psychological burdens that a patient must face. The loss of independence, the loss of sense of self, and functional capacities that some patients feel jeopardize their dignity. Another online article by Dr. Lin at growthhouse.org states that supporters of physician-assisted suicide have a feel of being in terrible pain and agony, of being hooked up to life support equipment and becoming financial and emotional burdens for their families. Therefore, physician-assisted suicide may be a compassionate response to unremitting suffering. Now that I have told you why patients should have the right to relieve their suffering, I will now tell you why many people argue against physician-assisted suicide. Many people are against physician-assisted suicide for reasons such as sanctity of life. Many religious and secular traditions that advocate sanctity of human life believe that life is so precious that it shouldn't be taken away under any circumstances, such as physician-assisted suicide. People argue that physician-assisted suicide threatens society by making human lives less valuable, and that they also believe that society is supposed to be responsible for preserving the sanctity of life. According to an article written by Friends for Life Ministry, people who oppose physician-assisted suicide find it morally objectionable and criminal. They also argue that physicians shouldn't help people kill themselves because their job is to preserve life. According to another article written by Wilton Gregory on AmericanCatholic.org, a court decision allowing assisted suicide would demean the lives of vulnerable patients and expose them to exploitation by those who feel they're better off dead. Now that I have told you why many people argue against physician-assisted suicide, I'll continue to share why I believe it should be legalized. Patients should have the right to choose the timing and manner of their deaths. In a nation that offers so many individual rights, physician-assisted suicide is not one of them. They're not allowed in 49 states in the country. In my opinion, every person has the right to live and die as they see fit. If a patient is terminally ill and is also competent enough to make a choice, they should be offered the option to be assisted by a doctor so that they can die peacefully. Although I am a Christian, I must respect those who don't have the same beliefs as I do. As individuals, all of us have the right to make a personal choice. It's unfair to not allow someone who does not have any religious or spiritual beliefs to choose the time and manner of their death because of other people's beliefs. According to the Participants' Handbook of the Education for Physicians on End-of-Life Care, a recent study states that 57% of physicians practicing today have received a request for physician-assisted suicide in some form or another. According to Hans Kuhn in Dying with Dignity, he states that human beings have the right on the basis of their autonomous control of themselves. It is not the doctor who's the Lord of life and death, but only the individual concerned. With freedom, he also states that with freedom, God has also given human beings the right to utter self-determination. This means that self-determination includes responsibility for oneself. Now, all of you should be familiar with why physician-assisted suicide should be legalized. Although many people advocate against physician-assisted suicide because of the sanctity of life, terminally ill patients should have the option to relieve their suffering and to choose the timing and manner of their deaths. Now, since we live in a country such as America, we must remind ourselves that we live in a nation where we can exercise individual rights. It's a tough decision to make, but I support physician-assisted suicide because I understand that there are patients who don't have the same beliefs as I do, and that I must also respect those choices. Thank you.
Bravo, we're done.
Congratulations.